Hello, mate. It is happening finally. Ascendancy Battle number 2 with Talkative Try. Remember to comment who you think won, and most importantly, vote in the poll that is linked below. Let's get into it.
Exiles, it is me, Talkative Try, here with Sylver XYZ in our second edition of the Path of Exile to Ascendancy Class Battles. Sylver, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, mate. I'm doing good. I'm very excited. Obviously, I got absolutely pummeled in the first round, and so I'm back with a vengeance, looking to earn the win.
All right, so yeah, the rules are pretty clear, everybody. We have designed 2 Ascendancy classes for Path of Exile 2, and at the end, we are going to pose it to all of you to vote on who made the better Ascendancy class. So if you'd like to vote, make sure after watching this video, whether it's live, whether it's after, to go and vote in those polls, because the loser of this has some pretty severe repercussions, especially with the economy early in the league, right, Sylver?
We'll save it, I guess, until afterwards. But yeah, I definitely want to win this one. Yeah.
All right, yeah, I totally agree with you. I believe we are going to have Sylver present his Ascendancy class first. Sylver, are you ready to show the people what you've done?
Yes. Yeah.
All
Why
right.
not? Right. That's what we're here for. So, I got the Sorceress in the poll. We put up a poll, and we got we said which you want to see next, and the top 2. One of them was Sorceress, so I had a Sorceress Ascendancy to come up with. And I think the thing for me, thinking about class fantasies, thinking about different fantasy types, we've seen a lot of elemental damage and elemental sorcery in PoE 1 and in PoE 2. And I wanted to do something that was a little bit more of a traditional kind of mage, focusing on other schools of magic, sort of like illusion, divination, abjuration, a bit more of a classic mage style, and offer that class fantasy to people who want to go for it. So the artwork that you can see here on screen is for the Mystic. It's the class that I'm calling the Mystic. And the Mystic is, I'll zoom in a little bit here. The Mystic is all about illusion magic, divination, telling the future, and sort of time manipulation. We know that Jonathan actually mentioned something about a sorceress class being incredibly broken, and I thought, well, what's more broken than time manipulation? So yeah, what we've got here is the skill tree, and I'll start off, if I punch in a little bit here. I'll start off by heading to the left. So this first node, you gain 2 maximum illusions, which will make sense in a second, and some evasion rating. And then you come into this duo node. So for those in the chat that haven't seen these before, we did these in our last designs. This was sort of shown in 2019 at the first Exile Con, showing off the ascendancies, and they were talking about, wouldn't it be cool if in the ascendancies you had options where you can exclusively take one or the other? And so this is what this is. So you would pick one side and it will lock out the other one. So on the top here, we've got Mirror Ward, and I'll let you guys sort of read it, but yeah, basically you're gaining an illusion when you roll. After you take a savage hit, you have a chance to gain your maximum number of illusions, and your illusions taunt for a second. Now, what is an illusion, right? Like, I think it's quite important. The text might be a little bit small on screen for some of you guys here, but an illusion, basically, it acts independently of you. It is not a minion. It's not classed as a minion. They're invulnerable, and they last for 4 seconds by default. They also deal 10% of your damage, so it's a fixed 10% damage of your output. And this kind of establishes what an illusion is within this design. And so anytime I'm referencing an illusion, it's building off of this base. So say you roll, you would leave an illusion behind you. If you took this one, it would taunt. And yeah, it's essentially a 10% damage multiplier per illusion, essentially, if you think of it that way. So this is the first one, and then there's another version of essentially a illusion generator, but this time what you're doing is, while there are enemies nearby, you have a 50% chance to summon up to your maximum illusions every 2 seconds. So this is a bit more of a consistent illusion generator. but it's got a slightly chaotic element in that it can summon up to your maximum. It might only summon one, it might summon two. And then there's some nice little blind and hinder
Oh
elements
yeah,
to
yeah.
your illusions. So let's just take one of these for the for the sake of the demo, and then we get another small node which is number of maximum illusions here. So you get another maximum illusion. So you get one by default. Every player gets one by default, even if they can't
Got
generate them.
it.
So you actually have four.
Okay, 4. Okay.
The top node on this branch here, which is crystallized reflections. That increases your maximum illusions again. It actually increases your minimum illusion, so you've always got one illusion permanently, and then it increases the damage and the duration of the illusion. So this is if you really wanted to go into this like illusion. It's like a minion army, but it's not really a minion army. It's you, and it's all scaled off of you. And so it
Okay.
scales. Yeah, so it scales off of your damage, your spell. So you're not trying to like increase minion spell damage or anything, minion damage or anything
Right,
like that.
right. Yeah, that's an awesome take on it, and it's adding another resource into the game, which I think with Path of Exile 2, they're really leaning into the power charge, the endurance charge, all those aspects from what we've seen. So I think
Mm-hmm.
this is very possible, having an ascendancy that, generates brand new resources. And something like this, oh my gosh. I
Yeah,
mean,
so
it
that's
just creates so many build possibilities, dude.
right, and like unique items that can interact with
Yeah.
illusions. And again, it's like trying to make them not, it's not essentially, it's like trying to make it not a minion
Right.
playstyle, but it has like this minion element and they only last for 4 seconds, so they're temporary, right? Or with this node, they last for 6 seconds. That's the illusion idea. And I feel like that kind of adds a little bit of a unique class mechanic. Let's now come up to the top left. So you've got some cooldown recovery and some cast speed here, and then you've got protraction. Upon ceasing channeling, you create an illusionary copy of yourself which repeats the channel for the same duration you held. So this doesn't count as an illusion. This is more of a like separate effect. The illusion is an illusory copy. But the idea is essentially that say you started channeling Flame Blast for 3 seconds, another version of that Flame Blast would channel behind you by an illusion. It only deals 25% of the initial damage. So essentially, this is like for your channeling skills, this is a 25% damage multiplier to your overall damage. And you're considered channeling whilst your copy is channeling. And this could tie into certain things on the passive tree that are like while channeling, you avoid stun. While channeling, you have higher hit recovery, etc., etc. And so yeah, this is like building on the channeling idea. So you leave an illusion behind you channeling, and I think especially with the amount of skills we have on offer, this could layer quite interestingly. Let's
Scorching
come down to the
Ray and Incineration finally
scorching
gonna
ray.
be, yeah, they're
Yeah.
gonna be valuable now, man.
Imagine Cyclone, right? Like imagine
Oh,
going really off
true.
meta and having
The
like a
boys!
layer. The
Tons of the boys going on, man. But channeling.
exactly,
Very
exactly.
cool.
That's the thing. This doesn't have to be spell based,
Yeah.
and that's what I wanted to offer with this is like a potential to go off meta, but also you could just go spellcaster and go traditional with it.
Right,
Okay,
right.
bottom left, increased movement speed and maximum energy shield. And then we have temporality. Now this is a much unloved skill in PoE 1. And that is Temporal Rift. So what this does is it basically means that Temporal Rift is active all of the time without any spirit reservation. Now, so for those of you that might not know, most of you will do, but Temporal Rift was a skill that you could essentially reserve some of your mana, and then you'd be able to activate it to flash back in time back to where you were and reset your life and energy shield. Or I'm not exactly 100% sure, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
to reset, kind of like Weaver's ult in Dota. If
Yeah, yeah,
you've
yeah.
got any Dota players out there. But yeah, so this idea, so you have Temporal Rift as an always active ability. You can activate it to travel back in time and go back to your position like 3 seconds ago. On use as well, your energy shield recharge begins. So if you haven't used it, so you can't spam this. If you haven't used it recently, it kickstarts your energy shield recharge, and also it slows people on the path. So you can almost imagine the animation with this would be like you would see an illusionary version of yourself walk back in time
Oh,
across the
lovely.
path you made, and slow everyone in that direction.
Ooh, that's super cool. Yeah, that secondary ability I think is necessary to really give it that oomph for people
Yeah,
wanting to use it. Yeah, and you can use it very strategically on bosses and the like. Uh, I
Yeah.
like it. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, and if you think like being able to force start your energy shield recharge, I think is potentially like a really powerful effect as well. It's like a real like get out of jail free card. So this
Yeah,
I can imagine in hardcore or something, this could be a node that you pick up, just for 2 points. It's a really good option.
100%.
Okay, now coming down to the bottom here, we've got increased area of effect and 20% chance to avoid being stunned. And then we have temporal dilation. So this is a bit of a wordy one. This is probably the most complex one on the Ascendancy. So you are surrounded by temporal dilation bubble. So this is a passive effect. Enemies inside the bubble are slowed by 5% action speed up to a cap. You can read this, but basically there has to be a cap there, and then the more party members, it reduces the cap. Otherwise, you would end up with a situation where you'd have like 3 of these Ascendancy in a class and like 90% action slow every monster.
Yeah.
It wouldn't make sense. So there's a diminishing returns based on player numbers. I'm sure someone in chat will correct me. But yeah, this is the idea. And then damage over time effects inside the bubble are basically halved in speed, but doubled in duration.
Ooh.
So it helps you to like regen through things slightly. Now, what this also does is gives you the dilation skill. And this is an active ability, a channeled ability that you can use, which... What's that?
Channel, that means it combos with the upper left one. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so essentially you can channel this to supercharge the usefulness of it. And it does stuff like increases your energy shield regen, increases the action speed slow, and it expands the bubble as you channel it. And so there's scenarios where you might be able to channel through and regen your energy shield with a load of small mobs. It also then deflects hits and suppresses spells from outside of the bubble. You have a 50% chance to do that. So I just loved this idea. When I was thinking about time and time skills and kind of this ascendancy, I thought, wouldn't it be cool to like be able to lean into this have a passive effect, but then you can sort of slam your staff in the ground and go like, okay, I'm slowing time for a second.
That's awesome. Great question. Is this attached to a weapon of some sort, or is this just a spell?
This is just a spell. So this is
any weapon can
you
be used
take
with it.
this and you get the active ability dilation and you can channel it. Also, it's passive. So you imagine you then kind of like with the Elementalist, where you take the Elemental Aegis node on the Ascendancy that just gives you this like elemental buffer. Like a bubble. I love the idea of showing these facts, like showing these things visually on the character. So you would have this like slightly distorting time bubble around you in a small area. So you can imagine for a melee, again, going off meta, for a melee style sorceress, you would have this like constant buff in melee range, or this action slow, which over time slows them. So
that's awesome. And that's what they're going in, like the bell in Path of Exile 2 right now. If you can use it, a little bell like appears on your staff and starts glowing. So they're all in for those type of things in PoE 2.
Oh, love that. Yeah, that kind of visual indication, diegetic design.
Yeah.
I love that stuff. So yeah, that's the temporal dilation node. And then what we can do, actually, these ones are kind of quite nice and simple. This is another duo node. So down here on the right, we've got increased damage over time and increased cast speed. And then we've got 2 options, and they're kind of 2 sides of the same coin. So we've got waxing. Your time is nigh, is the description. And your damage over time effects deal damage 60% faster, but you deal 36% less damage. That probably should be damage over time specific. So it should be 36% less damage over time. And then enemies affected by your damage over time are hindered. So this is essentially if you just want to ramp up your damage over time, you're getting like in theory about a 25%-ish more damage multiplier. It won't work out exactly like that. But this is just increasing your damage over time and making it happen a lot faster. Then the other side of the coin is waning, so it's waxing and waning. Time will always catch up with you, and your damage over time effects deal the same damage over time over twice the duration, and you gain a 20% damage over time multiplier. Also, enemies affected by your damage over time have a 50% reduced life recovery rate. So this could be a nice, if you want to just chuck a dot, chuck a contagion or an essence drain on a mob, you're gonna nerf or like massively gimp their recovery rate if they're a real sort of life regen giga chat mob.
Because we're gonna have those mods in PoE too. It's gonna happen. We'll probably have,
Yeah,
Maven or something like that. Healing bosses. Yeah, I get it. I get
exactly. Yeah.
it.
And so this is basically more of a, okay, this might not be my main damage source or my main sort of debuff, but I want to just throw this out there and it lasts twice as long.
Mm-hmm.
So that's those two. And then what we'll do is we'll come over to the right here. And so
Okay.
this is really like the kind of seeing into the future. This is like the divination side of the tree. If the left side was illusions, this side is like divination.
Ooh.
And I really wanted, like, it's a sort of the only other 2-point branch on the tree, or 4-point branch, you could call it. And so I really wanted to like make this kind of quite impactful. So over here we've got increased evasion rating and energy shield. Much more of a defensive option. So here we've got Portent, and this gives you more evasion rating and gives you some spell suppression. And it allows you to gain the stacks of Portent. So Portent is a new mechanic for the Ascendancy class. And what it does, you have up to 6 stacks, and you take 5% less damage per stack from your next hit. And then you lose all Portent when you're hit. So every second, you're basically gaining this thing called Portent. And then it's building up each stack. Your next hit will have 5% less damage against you. So this is, again, really leaning into, like, we have things like this, and this is very common in game design, but you're trying not to get hit, because when you do get hit, you're going to take a much less damage hit, this kind of thing. So this is really building into dodge and evasion. So if we want to double down on this, it's quite a simple node, but we can double down on Portent and go really defensive. And this is, again, we get some increased evasion rating and maximum energy shield. And then we have Foreseen. This gives you a base dodge rating, a dodge ability of you dodge 15% of attacks and spells just as a floor. You gain 1 stack of Portent when you dodge, a maximum of once per second, because there could be scenarios where this gets really broken. So you have to like cap it, I think, at once per second. So not only are you gaining Portent every second, you're also gaining it when you dodge. Once per second.
Okay,
and
so
then
you can gain it once per second in addition to that base 1 per second, right? When you dodge?
Yes, exactly.
Right,
So your maximum, you can potentially gain 2
2?
Portent per second if you're getting
Okay.
zerged by a load of small mobs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like constantly ticking up, constantly ticking up. And then this was kind of the thing that I think is really fun. So energy shield recharge cannot be interrupted if you've lost 3 or more Portent recently. That could be, that might have to be reworded. It might have to be like when you lose your maximum. Because you could probably get to 3 stacks a bit too easily, could be broken. All of these things are not, this is a TLDR or a disclaimer. It's like all of these things are not, balance designed. They're just kind of ideas and trying to do the best balance. But that'd all get play tested. The wicked thing that I love with this is losing your maximum Portent. So if you lose 6 stacks of Portent, you stop time for a second. And this wouldn't be for your party. Obviously, that would be massive troll. But essentially, everything in the game freezes, but you carry on playing for 1 second. So you essentially like full stop, like mobs, and like you essentially do like a time freeze on all mobs for 1 second. It could, it's an interesting idea for sure. You could set it to like 90% if you didn't want to have a really jarring, and you could also, like, for those animation buffs out there, like you could ease it so that it doesn't feel as like start stop. But basically you get a really strong action slow.
That's interesting, dude.
Yeah. Super strong defensive. And so you're getting kind of, you're getting some spell suppression and attack suppression, and then you're also getting, flat dodge rate for attacks and spells here. And then that brings us on to the last one, and this kind of dummies off of this theme, which is 10% deflection chance and 10% spell suppression chance. So for those of you that don't know yet, and I'm not 100% clear on this, you might be able to back me up, try.
Yep.
But deflection is essentially spell suppression for attacks. So you essentially take like a glancing blow in Last Epoch, you're getting like a diminished damage attack when you deflect. Is that right? It's like on evasion
believe
shield.
That's what it is. Now chat can correct us, of course, but I'm pretty sure that you're 100% on.
And then transposition. So this is kind of like a recoup mechanic. Again, sort of time related. And 25% of damage from deflected and suppressed hits or spells. is recouped as life, energy shield, and mana. So 25% recoup isn't a particularly strong thing for a, an Ascendancy node, but the fact that it's for life, energy shield, and mana is essentially making it like a 75% recoup node, just split across 3 resources. So I think it's really strong. And then basically what this does is it turns all of your attack block chance and spell block chance into deflection and suppression. So it's kind of like the glancing blows keystone, I think, in PoE 1, where you're converting all of your block chance into essentially a halved block chance, which is deflection or suppression, at an increased value, and that's going to then be triggering your transposition, your recoup, much more often.
Wow.
So you could have a shield that has really high block on it, and you're converting that up into deflection and stuff like that.
This seems like one of the most powerful defensive ascendancies I've ever seen in my life. That's crazy.
Yeah. I kind of wanted it to, I really wanted it to be like that. Like I wanted it to feel like a sorceress ascendancy in my mind kind of should, that you're being evasive, but through your intellect, not your agility. Like you're being evasive through your mastery of illusion and being able to see, divine what the enemy's going to do.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the tricks, it feels closest to the trickster, in its kind of like energy shield relationship and dodging and evasion and stacking evasion with, but maybe you don't want to play a shadow, right? Maybe you want to go more on the top side of the tree, do a sorceress. And then with the illusions and the channeling stuff, I feel like it's offering something very different there, and the unique mechanic with the illusions and that kind of thing.
Right. And, a lot of these ascendancies can turn the base class fantasy of these characters on their head. A lot of people associate a sorceress with destruction and huge effects and elemental power. But we can have, the mystic, which focuses heavily on defenses and these illusions. I love it. I think that's great. And that's something really big that they can go for with these ascendancies. I really do think we might be on the mark somewhat with some of these, dude. Because I think they're going to try to really surprise us. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, we're going to get some of the PoE 1 ascendancies and PoE 2. They're just going to port them. Have you heard that in any regard, though? Really? They're saying they're putting tons of effort. They don't want anything to be shown until it's finalized. These have to be hugely changed up from PoE 1. Yeah?
I think so. Like, I think, like Jonathan keeps, in the interviews, every now and then he'll say, we've got a couple of things up our sleeve, a couple of unexpected things, like you did in your interview. And I feel like, I just feel like there's a lot of opportunity for them to do something radically different. And we know what they're doing with the uniques, right? With like Rat's Nest having like all, extra animations and things like that. And I think I can't imagine that they're not doing that with ascendancies. That you take an ascendancy class and then your character model slightly changes and you get these quite transformative, like whether they're passive or active abilities, which completely change the mechanical play style of the character.
Yeah.
Anyway, fingers crossed. That's what we're hoping. So I wanted to give those, those old school mage heads out there, the proper wizard people, who are probably a bit disappointed that there's not some more kind of magic missile stuff and that, a little bit of mage vibes.
Yeah, 100%. I thought that design was awesome. A lot of people in chat agreed. Some people did have questions about, what the design meant for actual execution in game. But let me remind all of you, these are fan-made ascendancies. They're not actually in the game, so a lot of this is philosophical, right? And for people new in the chat, we've like tripled our viewers since starting. This is a fan-made Ascendancy class competition. No, the Path of Exile 2 Ascendancies are not out, and we are not getting the exclusive presentation of them. Right, Sylver?
Yeah. As much as I wish that was the case, but no.
I mean, how cool would that be? Grinding your games and trusting us with that. All right, everyone. I'm going to preface this with a few things. One, Sylver is an absolute god of design, and I did not want to make him design my passive trees again, so I went the route that I would go as someone who is not great at designing. So my tree isn't actually a tree. It's just, some text with some beautiful art that Sylver made.
You won the last one, so don't sell yourself short, right?
Okay, we'll see. Okay, everybody.
Guys. Don't believe him.
All right, so everyone, Last time, like Sylver said, we had you all vote on which classes you wanted us to design. So we had the Sorceress was one of the top two, and the other one, thankfully, was my favorite class that I'm looking forward to in Path of Exile 2, and that is the Druid. So, with that being said, obviously I have been awaiting a shape-shifting class in Path of Exile for so long. It was my favorite archetype in Diablo 2, even in Diablo 4, even though it's bad. I still enjoy the aesthetic and everything. Last Epoch, unfortunately, I did not enjoy it in Last Epoch. However, Path of Exile 2's Druid looks absolutely phenomenal, and I really want to try it out. But I was thinking, all right, so for this Ascendancy class, how could I put a Rayclastian twist on it? How could I turn this on its head into something that you wouldn't typically think of for a druid? Because druids are always attached to nature and growth and, you know, very, very positive, very, I don't know, just natural things, right? Okay. So for the druid, I designed a class called the Abomination. I'd picture if these were presented on the opening screen of Path of Exile 2 when you're choosing your class, this is what would be written there. So I'll read it off really quickly. Fallen foes on the battlefield simply provide more fuel to this freak of nature. Torn apart, beaten down, mauled bloody, scratched blind, it matters not. The Abomination eats, absorbs, or grafts the wreckage of enemies, both alive and dead, to bolster his own strength. Or, long before the fight, he experiments with the dark art of Thaumaturgy to horribly change his shape, size, and personal chemistry. No matter the approach, all tremble in his presence. In Path of Exile 2, the Abomination takes center stage as the premier shape-shifting archetype with a special Rayclastian twist. So, I went with a few core themes here, just like Sylver did for his Ascendancy class. One, that's of course forms and shape-shifting. Two, temporary buffs, and I took a little bit of inspiration from Headhunter here. 3, huge personal character power, positive and detriments. I'm thinking of, you know, not ascendancy notes, keystones. Okay, so they have huge potential positives and huge drawbacks as well. So that's one of the paths as well. And then I also did some edits to war cries and turned them into roars, which is something that this Ascendancy class would do. And then, of course, we have the beautiful art right here. So Sylver was able to make this for me right here. Absolutely awesome. You see that we grow arms off our back potentially. And yeah, it's a little bit more sickly almost than the normal werebear that we've seen that's quite bulky, quite strong. But that's because this should change your various shape-shifting forms. Okay, so we're going to go into the first path right here, which is Thaumaturgy. Huge cost, huge gain. All right, so the first small node, it's a dual node. So I went with a lot of dual nodes in this because I like the duality of being able to choose between a few things. And Sylver, you did a lot of that in the Veteran, and I was like, man, I didn't do that with the Sanguinist a lot. Let me lean into it for the Abomination. Okay, so the small dual node, the first one, 20% increased maximum life, minus 10% or minus 10% damage, or the opposite. So you can essentially choose either or here. So it's a big change to life, big change to damage, or the complete opposite. Big node number 1, horrifying strength. Your form withers, so you get much more sickly, and then it also grows a third and a fourth arm. So this would completely change the look of all your different shapeshifting forms. If you're a wolf, if you're a bear, if you're a, Roa, you'd grow arms out of your back essentially that are demonic and gangly, and they would become, new parts of your body. A lot like the MTX in Path of Exile 1. I think they're the wing MTX, where you grow those two bulky arms out. So it would essentially do that for this form, which is super cool, and they'd become a part of your attacks. Mechanically, though, this is what it would do. 30% reduced maximum life, 35% more damage, and 15% increased attack speed. So it essentially makes you far, far weaker in terms of health, but it's a huge damage boost, specifically while you're shapeshifted. All right? Then we have a few more nodes along this path. We have the small node, which is small dual node, which is +2 maximum power charges, -2 max endurance charges, or the opposite. So you can lean into either or right here. I went a lot into the charge design with this. And then big node A, the power of 2. Now this is a bit of a funny reference to a Star Wars show that's out, but I was like, it's a good name for it. So your form grows a second head, +4 maximum power charges, gain 1 power charge every 6 seconds. Power charges now increase spell damage by 10%. Now these are huge additions here, you guys, but there is that limiter. The fact that you have to be shifted while all these things are coming into play. So this isn't like, oh, I'm going to go with a huge crit skill and I'm going to stack all these power. No. You have to be shapeshifted in one of the forms available in PoE 2. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there is the second node that you can choose instead of this one. It's the dual choice. Dizzying Endurance. Your form strengthens. You can no longer use spell gems at all in any regard, anywhere in your build. 50% increased maximum life, 20% increased evasion, 20% increased armor, 5% more damage. So this means not only can you not cast any regular spells, but any buffs that you want to cast, you can't cast any of those. You can't, just no spells in your build at all. So it's a big limiter, but it basically turns your character into someone that has to lean into all those attack-based things, those slam-based skills, all that stuff. Because this matters especially based on something else that you can choose in the Ascendancy class. So I'm going to check out. Oh, we just got raided. Hey, thanks for the raid, Balor Mage. Appreciate that, dude. These are not real Ascendancy classes. These are fake, everyone. Just to clear that up. Sylver,
Leaks.
Before we go into path 2, which is hunger, any initial thoughts right here?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Like, do you know what? I think you did this last time really well, and you've done it really well this time. It's like you've taken a theme and then gone in on it, right? Like you say, big reward, big downside. I love the idea that you're giving the options as well. So you can essentially go full like bear tank is what I'm imagining in my mind, right? Like someone said in chat, it's like Gruthkal's fur kind of like, nope, you can't cast any spells, but you are just going to slap. You are going to slap.
100%.
Or the other way, right? And you're really leaning into this like very strange occult malformation where you're kind of becoming like this spell casting freak of nature with power charges and stuff. Super powerful again, but the point of these designs isn't to be balanced, it's to be interesting.
It's true.
And balance comes later, right? It should always come downstream. So I think dude, I love it. And I love that you've already got 2 really interesting options, which probably have like 20 different builds in each of them.
Let's see what else we get, because I feel like I went too broken with this, but I was like, I'm just going to go in with the Abomination because I want to play Shapeshifting. I needed to be absolutely busted on launch. So,
okay. One thing I'm going to say first, right, is guys, please remember that, just because it's OP, it doesn't make it better. All right? Just
True. I'm not a designer, guys. I said this, right? I'm not designing like a lot of this stuff, probably very busted. So think about, the thought and balance that Sylver put into his. Then I went totally unhinged with my design.
Right, I'm going to stop pleading now.
Yeah. All right. So path 2. This is the second one, guys. It's a little shorter than the first one. It's hunger. And this is kill streaks, essentially. So I'm a big fan of kill streaks. I'm a big fan of, building up over time when you're killing stuff in PoE. And that's going to be a big push, not only in PoE 1, but of course PoE 2. I know a lot of people are fearful that the combat's going to be very slow. There's not going to be a lot of monsters. As someone who has played the game, there are still tons of monsters. I encountered them in Act 1. It's going to happen in the end game. It's going to happen throughout. There's a lot of stuff to kill. With that being said, let's talk about kill streaks and hunger for the Abomination. So the first small node, 5% increased movement speed, +1 minimum frenzy charge. So I was so conflicted putting this in here. I don't know if minimums will be a thing in PoE 2, given how so many skills interact with spending charges. So I think they might actually go away, and there might be some other mechanic here. I don't think minimums are going to happen. I was thinking about this last night when I was finalizing, and I was like, I'll put it in there because that'll help me get a few extra votes because people like the OP-ness of stuff. So I have to beat Sylver in some way. All right. And then the first one, it's a dual node. I told you I went hard with the dual nodes here. So dual big node 1, Glorious Gorge. Feast on corpses you kill, recovering 2.5% life, 2.5% mana, and having a 10% chance to gain a random charge on death. So I imagine this would also play into the animations of how you attack creatures. It would change it up a little bit if they want to go in on this. So instead of, if you like slap a creature or bite a creature, you would go in and you would tear the creature apart. You'd see limbs flying everywhere once you take this node. I don't know if they'd go that hard on the visual design of things, but that's what I imagine. Like, you actually feast on the corpses of your slain.
Yeah, extra gore activated.
Extra gore activated. All right, and then we have this right here, you guys. I think people are going to like this. Dual Big Node 2. Feast for the Horde. Minions feast on monsters you or they kill, recovering 5% life, 5% mana, and having a 20% chance to gain a random charge. So I was going with the opportunity for you to go a little bit more of a minion playstyle too on this as well. If you want to shift and have minions, because the Druid, of course, is going to have a lot of minions on their side, but we also have all the other minions like skeletons, zombies, those bone constructs. And I think this is something you could definitely go in on, because imagine you're like this abomination who's also created other abominations to follow you and the like. And I'd imagine the same thing here. It kind of changes their animations. It makes everything a bit gory. They go in, they rip apart their foes and everything. Plus, minions, do they have mana? Because they can cast spells? Like, or is it just like a cooldown? So that's why I put the mana in there. I was like, I think they might have a resource, because they just have life right now, I think. I don't think they actually have mana, but I put it in there just in case.
Yeah. You could add CDR instead.
Yeah. 100%. Okay. Let's go. We're going to the next node here. Small dual node, number 2 here. Recover 1.5% life, 1.5% mana on monster kill, or 10% increased move speed, and +1 minimum frenzy charges. So this, once again, is going with you're just really speedy. You're trying to go from pack to pack, kill monsters, chase down monsters, all that. All right. And then the last one, Emboldening Blood. Absorb mods of all monsters you kill for 10 seconds. When a unique monster is killed, gain a random modifier for 30 seconds. All right, Sylver, I see a reaction on your side. What do you think about this?
Well, I mean, because it's so funny. I remember us talking ages ago and being like, wouldn't it be wicked if there was like a headhunter ascendancy mod or something, right? And we were like laughing, like, yeah, that would be totally busted. Da da da. And here we are, emboldening blood. Yeah.
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 It's pretty busted. So maybe you change this to but 10 seconds for the mini one. Maybe this is so for the unique monster. I'm thinking there's going to be less uniques in PoE 2. Yeah. So I almost wanted to say okay, so this would kind of reward someone for going into a map and going for the boss first and then clearing the map. Because I don't want to say oh, it's only 10 seconds with a unique. Maybe they'll have stuff like the rogue exiles, which count as uniques, of course. But if they don't, that was my perspective when I was designing it. I was like, okay,
yeah,
maybe there's
that would actually be so cool. I actually really love that idea of what if it was specifically for bosses, right? So you didn't get into the rogue exile anarchy problem, right?
Yeah.
And like you say, it became a strategy to boss rush because you got a really powerful mod for the rest of that map. Don't even put 30 seconds. Just be it's you've gone and killed the boss and stolen part of their sort of anatomy, or consumed part of them in this theme.
Yeah. Let me add that right now, Sylver. Let me add that right now. I'm just kidding.
Random buff, that is really quite noticeable.
100%.
Yeah.
So I like this.
The headhunter element, I mean, that can be balanced, right? Maybe it's 6 seconds, maybe it's 12 seconds. Who knows?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, and maybe we really lean into the RNG aspects of PoE, and if it's too strong right off the bat, you get this super powerful item. You change it into something maybe you get a chance to absorb the modifiers, whether it's 20%, 33%, something like that.
That'd be cool.
And then add some base passive buffs on top of this instead of, because remember, there's not a lot of passives in this line right here with the big ones right here. So maybe you add that and then reduce the chance for this actually happening, but keep it for the unique, because I think there's going to be less uniques in PoE 2.
Still so cool.
Yeah. Okay. So path number 3, shifting, which focuses on form dancing and single form. So I wanted to make sure that there was room for both playstyles here, because we're one button players, right? From PoE 1, we don't want to be dancing between forms. Well, not all of us are like that. I would love to dance between forms. I mean, that sounds so cool, going from a wolf to a bear to something else maybe that I have in this specific little part right here. It would be really awesome. So I designed it so that you could also take this ascendancy if you wanted to be in one form the entire time, or if you wanted to shift between a bunch. Because although we only know that 2 forms are confirmed for Path of Exile 2, I think there's going to be at least 3. And if there were some reward for shifting between all 3 of them, I think that'd be pretty darn cool. So, number 1, small node 1. Plus 15 strength, dex, intelligence. Probably my most boring node so far. Just baseline, totally fine. But I was thinking, I know it's super strong, right, Sylver? I know in PoE 2, I think it's plus 5 that you get now. So I was like, okay, how much is an Ascendancy node worth? 3 passives? Maybe. Yeah, we'll go with 3 passive skills.
Yeah.
All right. Dual big node A. Adaptive metamorphosis. So this is not as finely worded as Sylver's. So you guys are going to have to bear with me. Like I said, I'm not a designer. Every time you shift forms, you gain a buff. 5% increased max life, attack speed, cast speed, and 2% decreased cooldown recovery. This buff lasts 6 seconds and can stack. So, what do I do here? Do I add, a maximum to this? Do I say, like, I don't know, because how many times could you possibly be shifting, right? Because shifting probably has some sort of cooldown. So I was like, I don't know exactly how to balance this here. But I like it. I really like it.
Yeah, it's some sort of maximum. It's whatever, right? It's a balance thing. Yeah, you'd need some kind of cap, because if you stacked attack speed and then you were dancing between 2, right? But and also then it affects itself. So the more attack speed you have, the quicker you can shift, etc.
Yeah.
But no, that's got I think we're all good on that one.
Dual big node B. Solitary Fortitude. The longer you stay in a form, you gain a buff. 2% increased melee damage, spell damage, 1% increased deflection chance. This buff is gained every 6 seconds and stacks to a maximum of 20 times. So I did put the maximum here. So what is this? 40% increased, and then 20% deflection chance. So this is what I thought of it as, is, you're this big, bulky, hulking form, and you're charging into combat, almost kind of like King Kong. All the bullets deflecting off his form and everything. That's what I was kind of picturing, charging through battle. I thought that was really cool fantasy here. Then we have small node 1, plus 1 to level of all shapeshift gems. I think that's okay. There's obviously, so each shapeshift form doesn't actually have a gem that we know of. All the shapeshift gems transform you into that specific form. So like Maul for the bear, that's a gem for bears only. So you get plus 1 to level of that. And then I think the bear also has, it's like Earthquakes. What is it? Rampage, maybe, where you charge around, plus 1 to that, all that stuff. Rampage. You don't actually get, pluses to the forms, but the gems themselves. All right. Then we have the second dual node here. Dual big node 1. Simian Shift. Oh, Sylver read it. Sylver's like, yeah. You gain Quadrilla form. You cannot use any other forms. Quadrilla form can use skill gems from any other form. Okay, so in Path of Exile 2, there's this monster that's called a Quadrilla, and it's a gorilla with 4 arms. And how cool is that? With this ascendancy, you could have 6 arms on the Quadrilla. How awesome is that? And then with this specific form, there's going to be tons of different skill gems for each type of different form. Wolf, bear, Roa. I keep going to Roa. There's not going to be a Roa form. Maybe a Weta form. And you could use all those on this form. So if they're really going in and leaning into, having all these unique interactions, whether it's with unique items, changing the abilities, how they look, how they interact with different enemies, I feel like this is something that they could do as well. Like allowing this one exception where you could have a form that uses all the other animations and attacks from these other forms that usually are isolated just to them. So very exciting. I would love it.
Dude, super good. I'm such a Machamp was my favorite Pokemon card, sort of that like multi-arm. What's the guy from Mortal Kombat? The big guy with the
I know who you're talking
arms.
about. I have no idea who his name is. What his name is?
So, Goro. That's it.
I don't know. Goro. Okay.
Yeah, Goro.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So sick.
Okay, and then we've got the final part. Oh no, not the final part of this one. So we got dual big node 2, form flux. Each shapeshift form grants a unique trait. When shifting between forms, keep that trait in the new form for 6 seconds. Now, This is actually a node that they kind of presented in the ExileCon 2019 demo, wherein they said, werewolves get increased crit chance, and bears will get, what was it? Like, I think it was like some sort of defense and everything. And an Ascendancy node allowed you to keep those traits between forms for a certain amount of time. And I think the werecat got like increased, what was it, attack speed or something like that. I thought that was a cool idea as well. So like every single form that they have, whether it's 3, whether it's 4, 5, whatever, would have that unique trait that you could get through this Ascendancy class. And then you could just keep those traits as you shift between them. And you could do it strategically as well, because maybe one form interacts somehow with your slams in some way. And then, you can swap to a form that has a specific slam skill, something like that, right? It would be kind of cool to combo things together. Really encouraging that combo gameplay, which they seem to be leaning into.
What do you think?
Oh,
Because I love this idea, right? And obviously PoE 2 is going to be a slightly higher skill cap kind of
yeah.
game. There's a lot more mechanical skill
Mhm.
available to us. Wouldn't it be awesome if the trait was that they got a unique ability to spend like a unique power charge or a charge
Ooh.
spender? And
Yeah,
so
dude.
you could shift across, but you retained the ability to spend that power
Yep.
charge or something, right?
Yeah.
Maybe like the bear was endurance charge, the wolf was a
Yep.
frenzy, for
Yeah.
example.
Yeah, I like that. I really like
Um,
that. They are encouraging that a ton, man. Well, like, the monk especially. There are like unique charges on the monk, like, you can do X thing when you get this specific condition and have this charge. I bet I
yeah,
think that makes sense. That'd be pretty cool. I like that.
nice, man.
That's a
Yeah,
cool
I love
idea.
it.
All right. And then
Very
we have the
cool.
final node here, everyone, which I don't know, it's probably super broken. I'm ready for the chat to attack me. Big node, Tane's Darkness. You can use all gems while shapeshifted. So, of course, detractors like the one up here saying you can't use stuff, they overwrite that. But otherwise, you can use, spells and everything while you're shapeshifted. You can use, because right now, when you cast something like Volcano, as we saw in the Druid thing, you transform back into a human. Well, with this, you could do anything you wanted and stay in your bear form or whatever form, your quadrilla form. So, yeah, I thought it was cool.
I love it. I
All
love
right.
it.
We've got the final one right here, Path 4, which is Fear, and it focuses on war cries and a little bit of debuffing here. So we'll go into it right now. Small node number 1, 10% increased war cry effect, 5% reduced war cry cooldown recovery. So we're focusing on, animals, bestial, they roar, all that stuff, right? Very simple concept here. Big node 1, Malachi's Howl. War cries become roars. They may only be used while shifted, but have triple their effects and 1.5 times the cooldown. So big, big, big meaty roars. You can only use them in very specific conditions while you're shapeshifted, though. And roars, you could have unique items that interact with roars and the like, stuff like that. Nothing on the passive tree itself since it's isolated to an ascendancy, but I think this would be a pretty cool concept. Small node, 10% increased Warcry radius, plus 1 level to Warcry gems, pretty simple. And then we have the big nodes. Dual big node A, surprising shrieks. Minions may trigger roars. So, the way this would operate is right now a lot of minions have abilities that you can activate. Well, I know we're going to keep increasing the bloat on your keyboard, you guys, because now, in addition to you using the roars, your minions can as well. So when it comes to roars that are like debuffing things or doing certain effects when you're nearby or in the thick of things, imagine if you didn't want to, or, you run one side of the screen, your minions run another, you can activate those roars on your minions instead of yourself. I thought that would be kind of a cool, kind of almost micromanagey playstyle there. And then big node B, Dreadful Bellow, 20% reduced Warcry cooldown recovery. All enemies in radius of Warcries become frightened for 5 seconds. Minus 15% attack speed, minus 10% movement speed, and they become cullable. So I believe the default cull range is 5% of Path of Exile. So they would be, cullable within 5%, essentially. Which matters, trust me, on some of those magic monsters and rare monsters that are pretty darn tough in Path of Exile too. So alongside bosses. Yeah. And that's the Abomination, you guys. So Sylver, initial thoughts. I'll take questions from the chat. Like I said, I'm not a designer, so I'm sorry if some of it's kind of wonky and broken, but did my best.
No, dude, you're selling yourself too short. I think that was awesome. And I tell you why, not just because it was fun, right?
Mhm.
Like, which I think that's what we're doing here, right? Like, this is all just us making stuff
Yes.
up, and it is fun. It's really fun. It's really thematic, and you can imagine playing it. And I love like the references to Tane and like or Tane, or like however people say it, and like the whole
Yeah.
metamorph element. I think that's
Mhm.
so PoE, and I love that. And the thaumaturgy stuff, but also from a design point of view, like I love what you've done in the sense of offering things like really unique class defining things like the switch over from war cries to roars and
Mhm.
having that
Mhm.
interact differently. You've also made sure that people can have a minion, more like zoom
Mhm.
answer minion style, or
Mhm.
like alpha, like you're the alpha of a pack,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's an
right?
awesome idea. Yeah.
Or you're also giving like, no, I'm just a freak who like no one wants to come near me and you better chain me up, right?
Yeah.
That solo play style. I think like
Yeah.
you've done so much from a design point of view that I think the big question in my mind, and I'm sure chat will agree, is have how many builds have you made? And
Me?
that's the thing that what I mean is like how many builds does this ascendancy class create for
Oh.
the player base? And I
Mm.
think this is a really good example where like there's probably 150 different kind of builds that come out of something like this. Maybe, maybe much more. Because there's so many ways to play it. I love it, dude. And like you say, once you start interacting with unique items, say like you go for a life stacking, bear
Yeah.
style thing, and that's like you're the tank, you're enabling like that kind of play style, especially with
Yeah.
co-op and stuff now. I don't know, man. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm curious what people are saying in chat.
I've got Iliac who's saying it's overloaded. You are right, Iliac. You're 100% right. It's overloaded. But in Path of Exile 2, I do think a lot of the Ascendancy classes are supposed to do more than in PoE 1. I think they really want to push the envelope with what they can accomplish. In PoE 1, Ascendancy classes were released in what, 2.2 or something, 2.3? They didn't have as broad as capabilities as they have now. Now they can change animations, skill effects, and all the like with these ascendancies. And I think that's probably what they would want to do in PoE 1. But back then in PoE 1, a lot of the stuff that they could really manipulate easily with the team and resources they had available were those passive skills. We're making those huge passive sweeps and giving, yourself bonuses and the like. And they couldn't really hone in on the stuff that Sylver and I are like looking at. Sylver's the mystic and the illusions and all that stuff. Mine with these crazy different quadrilliforms, whatever. They couldn't do that before. Now I think they have the resources available to do that, and they have, basically a brand new game, a brand new slate. It would be really hard in PoE 1 to make Ascendancy classes like this without needing to revamp everything, right? We kind of
Yeah.
saw this a little bit in Affliction, I think. Those Ascendancies had some wild changes, and they weren't just passives. They allowed you to use brand new item sets. They gave you more inventory slots. I think they're going to go wild in a different way in Path of Exile 2 with the effects they're going to have on your characters, obviously, because those Ascendancies were designed to have effects across all character types, right?
Yeah.
They'll probably lean into it a lot more in PoE 2 in defining certain archetypes with Ascendancies. Now, we could be totally wrong on this, Sylver Dude, and and they're all going to just be passives, when PoE 2 comes out. It's going to be like, Ascendancies 2.0 from PoE 1, but we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
no, I'm 100% in the same line of thinking as you, dude. I think they've got such an opportunity here. And I don't want to overhype it, you don't want to get it's
yeah,
hopium to a
yeah.
degree, and that's kind of what we're doing here. But
Oh,
also it's
100%.
like, one of the things that I think we could see throughout the early access, not the open beta, but the early access period is maybe we, and maybe from 1.1 to 2.0 is
Mm-hmm.
we get ascendancies and maybe they are a little bit more kind of passive, but over time the team has this plan and they have time to go, hey, now we've got some free animation time budget for the resources. Well, actually that quadrilla thing that we wanted to add 6 months ago, we're going to do that now, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
maybe we see ascendancies evolve over time. So
yeah.
yeah, no, I'm 100% with you.
Oh, heck yeah. Okay, you guys. So those were the presentations of the Mystic and the Abomination.
We'll put the polls, the official poll up on our channels.
Yeah.
and we can get the vote going there, right?
Ooh, 100%. How about this too? Maybe if you comment on Sylver's YouTube video, you get, double voting power or something? Maybe something like that,
We we could do something like
Yeah.
that. Try to professional YouTuber.
Yeah,
Let's
get
go
some
with what
extra
he said.
engagement, you guys. So if you vote in Silver's comments, we'll count your votes more. You have more sway if you leave a comment. I think that works. We will be doing a third one, and I think it's gonna involve 3 individuals. Silver, what do you think?
Yeah, so we've been in talks, people. We've been in talks. As you know, we've done a few podcasts together and stuff like that. So it's not too much of a mystery for those of you that have been following closely. But we're going to be doing the first 3-way Ascendancy battle coming up next, and that is going to be with our very, very special guest and a very good friend, Dreamcore.
Yep.
So, yeah, Dreamcore is going to be joining. Omega's called it, and we are super excited to be having him on. He has a brain like no other when it comes to mechanics inside of PoE. He is far superior to us in terms of understanding the complexities and nuances of the game. So, yeah, absolutely stoked. Yeah,
We're gonna be
Dreamcore's going to be
smoked.
joining.
He's gonna smoke us. I think he's ready. And if anybody didn't see it, he did a face reveal in his latest video. So he's gonna be on video. Oh, you don't know Sylver?
How did I miss this?
Oh, you gotta go check it out. Yep, he got a webcam and everything.
Stream.
Yep.
End the stream now.
He did the whole like Sir Gog angle to what's the Sir Gog angle? So I can't even do it with my camera, but it was up the nose, He totally acknowledged it, so that's the only reason I'm calling it out, but it was very funny.
Oh,
so,
howdy y'all. Grab yourself a drink.
yeah, yep. So yeah, that'll be really fun, you guys. We'll probably do that the next time there's a bout of PoE 2 knows, because we will be doing another podcast when GGG Live hits, and that's mid-July, to talk about all things related to that. We might even do it right after the announcement. We'll have to see. But yeah, Sylver. Any closing words for the battle? Any fighting words you want to scream my way?
Dude, trying to be aggressive towards you is just like trying to punch a koala bear or something. Like you're too lovely and kind. So no, I have no mean talk, but just to say thank you again. It's been so much fun. I'm glad we managed to make it happen. I know we've both been extremely busy with everything going on. So yeah, no, it's been an absolute blast, and I cannot wait. The PoE 2 hype is building again. It was a perfect time to do this. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the next one, and hopefully we'll have some more official GGG reveals coming up soon that we can bounce off. And now it is over to you. So remember to comment, leave your vote in the poll, which I have linked down below. And of course, if you are enjoying this content and this channel, then I would really appreciate it if you would consider subscribing. Especially at the minute, we're a super small channel and it helps a huge amount. All right, until the next one, guys. Ta-da.